So chapter 30, biodiversity and conservation. So biodiversity and biodiversity conservation we are going to study, right? So the first thing that would okay, enormous diversity of life form that okay, so even for humans, the rich variety of living organisms. So a common man to believe, okay, so more than 20,000 species of ants and 3 lakh species of beetles, then 28,000 species of fishes and nearly 20,000 of species of orchids. So 20,000 of species of ants, then 3 lakh species of beetles, then 20,000 species of fishes and nearly 20,000 species of orchids. Okay, so what is the significance of such diversity? Now the biodiversity, right? So biodiversity, right? So in our biosphere, immense diversity or heterogeneity exists not only at the species level but at all the levels of biological organization, ranging from macromolecules within cells to biomes. Now, biodiversity is a term popularized by the sociobiologist Edward Wilson to describe the combined diversity at all the levels of biological organization. So, the most important of them are genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecological diversity. A single species might show high diversity at the genetic level or its distributional range. So, the genetic variation shown by the medicinal plant Rauwolfia vomitoria growing in different Himalayan regions. So, if the region is changed, might be in terms of the potency and concentration of the active chemical reserpine that the plant produces. Okay, growing in different Himalayan ranges might be in terms of the potency and concentration of the active chemical reserpine that the plant produces. So India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mango. Okay, so species diversity, the diversity at the species level, for example, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than the Eastern Ghats. Species diversity, the diversity at the species level, for example, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than the Eastern Ghats. So ecological diversity at the ecosystem level, India, for instance, with its deserts, rainforests, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuary, and alpine meadows, has a greater ecosystem diversity than Scandinavian country like Norway. So at the ecosystem level, India, for instance, with its deserts, rainforests, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuary, and alpine meadows, has a greater ecosystem diversity than a Scandinavian country like Norway. This is the ecological diversity. Okay. So how many species are there on Earth and how many in India? According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, that is in 2004, the total number of plant and animal species described so far is slightly more than 1.5 million, but we have no clear idea of how many species are yet to be discovered and described. So for many taxonomy groups, species inventories are more complete in temperate than in tropical countries. Some extreme estimates range from 20 to 50 million, but a more conservative and scientifically sound estimate made by Robert May places the global species diversity at about 7 million. So more than 70% of all the species recorded are animals, while plants including algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperm, angiosperm comprise no more than 22% of the total. So among animals, insects are the most species rich taxonomic group, making up more than 70% of the total. So that means out of every 100 animals on the planet, 7 are insects. The number of fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of the species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. So fishes, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. Compared to this, fungi have more species number. So invertebrates, vertebrates and plants. So plants, invertebrates and vertebrates. Now invertebrates. So insects, then mollusks, then crustaceans, then other animal groups, right? Vertebrates having fishes, then amphibians, then reptiles, birds and then mammals. And vertebrates having, you see, fungi, then angiosperm, then algae, mosses, fern, alleles and lichens. So representing global diversity, there proportionate number of species of major taxa of plants, invertebrates and vertebrates. So insects, then mollusks, then crustaceans, then other animal groups. Invertebrate fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. And in plants, fungi, angiosperm, algae, mosses, ferns, alleles and then lichens. It should be noted that these estimates do not give any figures for prokaryotes. Biologists are not sure about how many prokaryotic species there might be. The problem is that conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable for identifying microbial species, and many species are simply not culturable under laboratory conditions. If we accept biochemical or molecular criteria for delineating species for this group, then their diversity alone might run into millions. So although India has only 2% of the world's land area, its 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 share of the global species diversity is an impressive, that is 8.1%. That is what makes our country one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. Nearly 45%, 45,000 species of plants and twice as many of animals have been recorded from India. So nearly 45,000 species of plants and twice as many of animals have been recorded from India. So how many living species are actually there waiting to be discovered and named? If we accept May's global estimates, only 22% of the total species have been recorded so far. Applying this proportion to Indians diversity figures, we estimate that there are probably more than 1 lakh plant species and more than 3 lakh animal species yet to be discovered and described. So 1 lakh species of plants and 3 lakh animal species yet to be discovered and described. So would we ever be able to complete the inventory of the biological wealth of our country? Now the patterns of the biodiversity. So latitudinal gradients. Okay, the diversity of plants and animals is not uniform throughout the world but shows a rather uneven distribution. In general, species diversity decreases as we move from the equator towards the pole. So from equator towards the pole, when we move, the species diversity is decreased. So with very few exceptions, tropics have more species than temperate or polar areas. Now Colombia, located near the equator, has nearly 400 species of birds, while New York has 105 species, Greenland has 56 species, and India harbors like which is India, with much of its land area in the tropical region like tropical latitudes, has more than 1200 species of birds. So 1400 birds in Colombia, New York 0.556, that is Greenland, and India, that is 1200. So these are the birds, right? A forest in a tropical region like Ecuador. A forest in a tropical region like Ecuador. So Ecuador is a forest in a tropical region, has up to 10 times as many species of vascular plants as a forest of equal area, that is Ecuador, in a temperate region like the Midwest, like in a temperate region Midwest of the USA. The largely tropical Amazonian rainforest in South America has the greatest biodiversity on earth. It is home to more than 40,000 species of plants, 3,000 of reptiles, and of more than 1,25,000 invertebrates. Wait, the largely tropical so Amazon forest in the tropical region, okay, it is in South America, okay, has the greatest biodiversity on earth. Now it is like 40,000 species of plants, then 3,000 of fishes, then 30,000, then 1,300 of birds, then 427 of mammals, 427 of amphibians, same, 378 of reptiles, and more than 1,25,000 invertebrates. So invertebrate comes first, then plants, then fishes, birds, mammals, and animals. So you can remember like that. Invertebrates, birds, plants, no, invertebrates, birds, invertebrates, plants, fishes, and then birds. So invertebrates, plants, fishes, then birds, and then mammals and amphibians. So invertebrates, plants, fishes, birds, mammals, and amphibians, and reptiles. And scientists estimate that in this rainforest there might be at least 2 million species they are eating to be discovered. Okay, now what is so special about tropics that might account for their greater biological diversity? Now ecologists and evolutionary biologists have proposed various hypotheses. Some important ones are speciation is generally a function of time, right? Unlike temperate regions subjected to frequent glaciation in the tropical latitudes have remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years and had a long evolutionary time for species diversification. So speciation has lot of time in the tropical regions, right? So for the species diversification. Now the tropical environment. Now the tropical environments, unlike temperate ones, are less seasonable. So tropical environments, unlike temperate ones, are less seasonal, relatively more constant and predictable. Such constant environments promote niche specialization and lead to greater species diversity. So constant environment promote niche specialization and then lead to a greater species diversity. There is more solar energy available in the tropics, which contributes to higher productivity. So there is more solar energy available in the tropics, which contributes to higher productivity. This in turn might contribute indirectly to greater diversity. Now second is the species area relationships. So during his pioneering and extensive exploration in the wilderness of South American jungles, the great German naturalist and geographer Alexander von Humboldt, so German naturalist and geographer Alexander von Humboldt would observe that within a region species richness increases with increasing explored area, but only up to a limit. So in fact, the relation between species richness and area for wide variety of taxa, angiosperm plants, birds, bats, freshwater species turns out to be a rectangular hyperbola. On a logarithmic scale, the relationship is a straight line described by the equation log s is equals to log c plus z log a. So S is the species richness, A is the area, Z is the slope of the line, that is the regression coefficient, and C is the y-intercept. Okay. So C is equals to y-intercept. So ecologists have discovered that the value of the Z lies in the range of 0.1 to 0.2, regardless of the taxonomic group or the region. So whether it is the plants in the Britain, birds in California, or mollusks in New York State, the slope of the regression coefficient. what is the slopes? The slopes of the regression line are amazingly similar. Okay, but if you analyze the species area relationships among very large areas like the entire continents, you will find that the slope of the line to be much steeper. That is values in the z values in the range of 0.6 to 1.2. Okay, so for example, for frugivorous, this is fruit eating birds and mammals in the tropical forest. So for example, for frugivorous, that is fruit eating birds and mammals in the tropical forest of different continents, the slope is found to be 1.15. What do steeper slope mean in this context? But if we analyze the species area relationships among very large areas like the entire continents, you will find that the slope of the line to be much steeper. There is z values in the range of point 0.6 to 1.5, 1.2, right? For example, for frugivorous fruit-eating birds and mammals in the tropical forest of different continents, the slope is found to be 1.15. So species richness, and then there is area. This is log scale, that is log is equals to log c plus z log a. S is equals to ca power z, so this is species area relationship. Showing species area relationship, note that on log scale the relationship becomes linear. ca power z. The importance of species diversity to the ecosystem, right? Okay, for many decades, ecologists believe that communities with more species generally tend to be more stable than those with less species. So communities with more species, they tend to be more stable than those with less species. What exactly is stability for a biological community? Okay, stable community, right? A stable community should not show too much variation in productivity from year to year. It must be either resilient or resilient to occasional disturbances, natural or can be man-made. So okay, so stable community should not show too much variation in productivity from year to year. A stable community should not show too much variation in productivity from year to year. It must be either resistant or resilient to occasional disturbances, natural or man-made, and it must also be resistant to invasions by alien species. So we do not know how these attributes are linked to the species richness in a community. A stable community show much variation in productivity from year. No, do not show much variation from year to year, and they must be either resilient or resilient. Okay, but David Tillman's long-term ecosystem experience using outdoor plots provides some tentative answers. Tillman found that plots with more species showed less year-to-year variation in total biomass. With more species showed less year-to-year variation in total biomass. He also showed that in his experiment, increased diversity contribute to higher productivity. So increased biodiversity, increase higher productivity, and less variation year to year, the more stable is a community, and it must be either resilient or resilient to occasional disturbances. Although we may not understand completely how species richness contributes to the well-being of an ecosystem, we know enough to realize that rich biodiversity is not only essential for ecosystem health but imperative for the very survival of the human race on this planet. Okay, the Rivet Popper hypothesis used by Stanford ecologist Paul Ehrlich In an airplane is an ecosystem. All parts are joined together using thousands of rivets, that is species. So all parts are joined together using thousands of rivets, that is species. If every passenger traveling in it starts popping a rivet, so if every passenger traveling in it starts popping a rivet, it's mean to take home, causing a species to become extinct. Now, species to become extinct. Popping a rabbit is species to become extinct. It may not affect flight safety, that is proper functioning of the ecosystem, flight safety initially, but as more and more rabbits are removed, the plane becomes dangerously weak over a period of time. Now, furthermore, which rabbit is removed may also be critical. Which rabbit is removed also critical. So, loss of rabbits on the wings, that is key species that drive major ecosystem functions, is obviously a more serious threat to flight safety than loss of a few rivets on the seats or windows inside the plane. So loss of biodiversity 9. So loss of biodiversity, while it is doubtful if any new species added are being added through speciation into the Earth's territory of species, there is no doubt about their counting losses